Hey guys, it's Andrea. Today, we don't know who we are or what we're doing out here. Deanna continues her ass-kicking streak, and we ask the question, would you risk hooking up with someone in an amnesia state? Come nerd out with us.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the number one place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
Hey, I'm your co-host, Andrea. Today we're watching Season 5, Episode 14, Conundrum, written by Paul Schiffer and directed by Les Landau. In this episode, the entire crew suffers complete memory loss after an unknown alien ship scans the Enterprise. Although unable to recall their names and duties, they quickly realize that somehow they still know how to operate the starship, which is kind of crazy. In the confusion, no one notices that Kieran McDuff, identified by the ship's computers as the Enterprise's executive officer, is someone they've never seen before. Oh my God.
Such a good
one. What do you think? What do you think?
I'm super excited about this one because this is one of my all-time favorite TNG episodes.
Me too.
And I cannot believe we had to wait till like the end of season 5 to get here. I could have sworn this. We had an episode called Clues that was in, I think, season 4, maybe. And when that happened, that was the one where Data was like, you know, negotiating with some life form that knocked everybody else out. And he was lying to everybody to try to keep them from going back to that planet. Right.
Yes.
So that, and when that one happened, both of us, I think, were like, oh, this is that one. And then we're like, oh, wait, no, this is the other one, but this one's good too. I've been waiting for this and it's here.
Yes. Okay. So this story is one of several amnesia stories first pitched for season 4 initially, actually. 2 of these were produced in season 4, Future Imperfect, where Riker wakes up 16 years in the future and can't remember his son, but it's all that game by that little lonely alien boy. And then Clues, that's the one you just talked about where they were like out for 30 seconds, but it was really 24 hours. So this is the third like amnesia episode that we've had. And there's just something so freaking cool about an amnesia episode. I can't really put my finger on it.
I think it's the mystery. I think it's the unraveling of the mystery because we know the answer.
Yes.
And then we're like, will they figure it out? Sometimes we don't. And we're like, what happened?
In this one, we know part of it. Like,
yes,
we know
but there's a huge part we don't know.
Yes. We know that McDuff is like an imposter or like not supposed to be there or something, but we don't know like what's up with the Lysians, what's up. Like, we don't really know any of this. So you're like, something is wrong. So the original pitch for this episode actually involved drafting soldiers by rewriting their memories. And they didn't end up doing that for the story, but a similar story ended up appearing in Voyager by the name of Nemesis, that episode Nemesis.
So this episode, I really like it. And I couldn't put my finger on why I like it. Similar to you in the amnesia episodes where you're like, I don't know why I like them. I couldn't put my finger on why I liked it. And even at the end of the episode, I still couldn't put my finger on it. I was just like, this is just so good. And I don't know what exactly about it I like. I do think it is the mystery. I mean, I do think it is
a bottle show. It's not even like there aren't even like new people, new sets, new whatever. Like even
that's true.
Even the Lysian like central
like command center.
Ship,
yeah.
It's the Edo god from Justice in season 1. Yeah.
It looks like my Wi-Fi modem.
Yeah, it really does. It's like a 3-legged ship with like one kind of crooked leg. Yeah. And I was like, wait, that's the Edo. Like I went back and looked at it and I was like, that's it. That's solely like the Edo god from the episode Justice way back in season 1, which we hate and we recommend you skip.
Yep. Go ahead and skip that one.
Yep. We hate that one so much. But it's totally a bottle show. There's nothing new about it. Kieran McDuff is like the only new person we see, but there's genius. Something about this episode genius. It's just so good. We also get to see a new dynamic on familiar faces. And I really love that. Like Ro and Riker and even like Worf and Picard have a different dynamic when Worf is trying to captain himself up and all that. You know, it's like, dang, like if you wipe the slate clean on them and they don't remember the years of like dedicated service and trust that they've built up over the years, like how would they behave with one another? I don't know. I just thought this whole thing was brilliant. This is a timeless favorite episode of mine. I can watch it over and over and over again and never get tired of it. And I do. And I'll tell you, I was so excited to sit down and watch this one. I was like, oh, this is going to be so good. You know, and there are some episodes like Sarek where I'm like, this is going to effing suck.
Yeah. Yep. There are some episodes where you're like, where's the 2x speed? But this is not one of them. This is so good. And so we're just going to jump right in. We don't know how much of this intro we're going to keep before you get to listen to our breakdown of the show because we're hoping that you love it as much as we do.
Yeah.
So the episode starts out in 10 forward and they're playing space chess, which they don't play that many times. I think this is like our third time seeing this set.
Yes.
And it's so cool. Every time I see it, I'm like, ooh, I so wonder about the rules. I mean, let's get it straight. I can't play regular, like 2D chess. So like space chess is beyond my capabilities at the moment. However, I checkers is kind
of, my capability. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like a dumb individual. I'm very smart, but checkers is about where I tap out. I'm like, checkers, I'm good.
Yeah, some games are best left to not us, and that's one of them. But like they're playing space chess, and it's Troy and Data playing space chess, and I'm just geeking out over these like glass. I mean, they're probably plastic, but these glass chess pieces are so beautiful. And so apparently there was a bet made on this game, and Troy handily beats Data. Doesn't even have to finish the game. Just shows Data that in 9 moves she will win, and he's like,
"Well, she can and will."
Yep. Well, that's the game. And I was just like, "Oh, that's got to be nice playing against an opponent who's just like." Looks like you won. All right, moving on. You don't even have to fight for it.
Yeah, totally.
So her reward for this bet was for Data to make her a Sumerian sunset made in the traditional style.
Yes.
Which, can I just say, is this drink, because we don't see it yet. We see it like a little bit later, but this drink is the coolest drink I have ever seen on television in my life.
Oh, hands down. It's so freaking cool. I actually did make my own version of a Sumerian sunset, and I took a picture of it and I posted it up on our Instagram. It's up now at the TNG Podcast on Instagram. And it's really, really cool looking. It's a cocktail that has different colors that are sort of layered. And it's what I really love about it is in Star Trek, Data kind of like plinks the glass and it changes colors. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I couldn't do anything like that. But what I did do was I used something called butterfly pea flower tea. You can buy butterfly pea flower tea. It's just dried butterfly pea flowers. Say that 5 times fast. And like you make, you just steep these dried flowers in hot water and it's a tea. And then I put the tea in ice cube trays and freeze them. So it's a really brilliant, like royal blue. Like it's such a beautiful color. But this butterfly pea flower tea is a natural, like acid base indicator. So when you add acid to it, like lemon juice, it makes it turn brilliant purple. So I made like a citrus liqueur. So it's got that like citric acid in it, and like put this butterfly pea flower tea on it. And the liquid tea, like when it touched the citrus, turned purple, but then there's like the deep blue ice cubes floating on top. So it's really cool. So it's up on our Instagram if you want to take a look. And there's also like kind of loose instructions on how to do it if you want to do it yourself.
That was going to be my question. Did you put the ingredients so that if people want to make their own Sumerian sunsets? Okay, so go check this out on our Instagram with the hashtag, or not with the hashtag, with the handle at the TNG Podcast, and then tag us when you make your own Sumerian sunset, because we want to see you make it. We want to see your versions of it. We want to see your smiling faces, having it in the non-traditional style. I'm super excited about that.
I mean, the orange liqueur that I made, my neighbor just had a ton of kumquats, which are like little weird oranges kind of things. So I just made a liqueur out of that. But you can do it as a mocktail instead of as a cocktail. You just really need like some citrus and butterfly pea flower tea, which I just get off of Amazon usually.
And I would just make mine as like lemonade. Like that's what I would do. I would just do some lemonade and put some of that tea as ice cubes on top of the lemonade and call it a day.
You know what? That is actually really brilliant. And what happens is you have these blue ice cubes that as they melt purple. They stream like purple streams down from the blue ice cubes. It's so beautiful and it's so cool. And I was like, it's an acid base reaction. Like I was so excited.
It's cool, it's delicious, and it's science. What more could we ask for?
I mean, seriously,
nothing
what more could you ask for? But did you notice, by the way, we've been calling this space chess forever. We've never actually heard the name of the game. And Troy does say chess is more than just, strategy. It's intuition. And I was like, even they call it chess. Cool. Now we know it's not like it is space chess.
Enterrata or something like that.
Exactly.
It's just
chess. Yeah.
It's just 3D chess. Yeah. Let's not give that another name. Okay. After this, Data goes to make the drink, which is just so cute. And it also made me wonder, what Data would have gotten if he won, but we never find that answer. So we kind of poke around the ship to find out what else is going on. before we have the huge bum moment. So we pop into sick bay. There's a woman with an injury and Beverly's attending to it. We pop over to the turbo lift or to the hallway on their way to the turbo lift, and we see Riker and Ro having a huge argument about something ridiculous, because Ro is sometimes ridiculous.
Yeah.
She's just not following the rules.
She's not following the rules. I love, like, she's just like, well, I found a better way. And Riker's like, do you think that you would have, like, if you would have given me the chance, like, and asked me to do it this way, I might have said yes. And at the same time, he says yes. She's like, no. And he says, the rules on this ship do not change just because Ro Laren decides they do. And I really felt that. I was like, Ro, you're not special, girl. I get it. You're like a Han Solo-esque kind of like gung-ho, single, lone wolf type.
But you're part of a crew.
You're part of a crew. Your responsibility is to the crew and not just to like, and sometimes I really do feel her, because like the line at the DMV is so effing long. I'm like, there's got to be a faster way to do this. Let's just expedite this, but this is the DMV.
That's exactly what Riker said. Riker said, if you had a better way, you could have come and talked to me. And I might have said, yes, do it that way. The rule is following the chain of command. The rule isn't doing it the way it's always been done just because it's been done that way. They need and want innovation and, new thoughts and new ways of doing things. It's just about going through the proper protocols so that you're not messing up what other people had scheduled, what other people had planned. You're going to just taking offline systems that people are trying to work on right now. Like, you're messing up the system by going around it. Just work within it. It's a work in progress. In any case, they get onto the bridge, and Picard they see this ship, this tiny little ship. It looks extremely small, kind of on the view screen. And Worf is automatically like, I think we need to raise shields, and we don't know what it's up to. It's scanning us. And Picard's like, no, let's be friends. Okay. Let's just not have any gestures of wanting to arm ourselves. Let's just play it nice. And then Geordi's like, their scanning has just increased by 1,500%.
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay.
And Picard's like, he goes, well, he just kind of shrugs
shields
and goes,
up. Yeah.
Shields up, like I tried, we tried, but no, it didn't work out. We see a flash of green light travel through the entire ship. And we're like, okay, that was weird. I wonder what that is. But I kind of thought, imagining I hadn't seen this episode before, it's kind of like, well, yeah, they were scanning. So it's just some really
that's like scanner. A visual. That's like the visual interpretation of a scan. Well, even before that, Data hands Troy the Sumerian sunset. It's looks like clear water in a wine glass. And he goes, bing. And it swirls like green and pink and orange. And then it kind of looks like a tequila sunrise. And it's so beautiful. And Data glitches when he says, I hope you like it. I hope you like it. I hope you like it. And Troy's like, huh? And then that's when we see the green flash kind of go across the entire ship. And you're like, oh, uh-oh.
Yeah, which was our cue to know that this flash also affected Data, which it did not in the episode clues. Yeah. So now we have something that even can affect Data, which kind of like, that's amazing technology.
That's really impressive. Like, between Troy being able to sense everything and Data being impervious to like human ailments and, like carbon-based life form ailments, the Enterprise is sort of indestructible. And then you've got this that's like very easily sort of takes over the ship. You're like, oh, dang.
Yeah, this puts the electricity monsters to shame.
Sure does.
It took over the ship in one small flash. And we don't know how long the flash lasted. We don't know the time period of this flash, but we see a flash. And then all of a sudden, everyone's looking at each other very, very confused. Yes. And back on the bridge, Picard and Riker are just kind of like, I don't know who you are. Wait a minute. I don't know who I am. And you're like, ruh-roh. And as the camera's panning through the entire bridge and we're seeing all the crew looking all confused, there's this new random dude just standing there looking around.
Looking just as confused.
He has his uniform on and everything. And I do remember this, watching this as a kid, because I have the same feeling every time I watch this scene. I'm like, wait, who is that guy? Do I know him? Like, my initial thought is like, do I know him? Like, it's not until later on when the computer says that he's the second officer, when you're like, wait a minute. But in that moment, I always think, hey, is that guy like an ensign, or is he like from engineering? Is he one of the random people clicking panels?
You know what? There is the doctor from Violations was at the medical station, like on the bridge.
Oh, no
and
way.
I was like, have we seen him before? Like he's in there like a little bit later in this episode. And I was like, have we seen him before? Because, you know, sometimes you just get randos on the bridge.
Yeah.
So that's how I felt the first time, where I was like, who's the rando? And then, yeah, when the computer was like, First Officer Kieran McDuff, I was like, that's not right.
Yeah. Then you're like, wait a minute.
Now we've got a problem.
But in this scene, you're just like, and it didn't even dawn on me that he wasn't there a moment ago. I just figured he was one of the people from the back, or maybe he was one of the people from the con who was clicking stuff, and I just didn't see him before. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was, oof. I was like, no, not good, not good. So we've got an intruder alert going on in our minds, right? And Geordi is able to kind of use the computer interface to get a status readout of the Enterprise, because everybody's like, I don't know who you are. And actually, I don't even know who I am, where it's like, oh, fuck. You know, so they start kind of working together to be like, we need to figure out what's going on. And Geordi is like, let's try to get a readout on the Enterprise. Don't alarm anybody, you know. And Worf has this moment where he's like, why do you guys assume that you're in control? Like, I am also decorated. Like, he's pointing to his baldric. And it's like, yeah, you are. Like, it gives me Chewbacca vibes, right? He's got like like a metal sash on. But he just goes lone wolf. And he's like, he sends out this APB to all decks being like, report to the bridge with your status, stay calm and stay in place. Bridge out. And everybody's looking at Worf like, who said you can do that? Like, what do you do? Like, he's just doing what he thinks is best in the moment. But it's like, but wait a minute, again, this is a crew.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting about this scene is that Riker sees the pips on Picard's neck and says, you must be the one in charge because you've got the most pips. And that's when Worf is like, wait a minute, I've got a baldric. That's way shinier than a pip. Come on. And you're like, fair. It is. It's bigger. It's shinier. It makes a lot of sense. And Picard responds with, it doesn't really matter who's in charge right now. Let's focus on finding our identities. Like, let's focus on figuring out who we are. We'll figure out who's in charge later. And I actually had a question for you about this.
Okay.
What do you think should be the first thing to focus on in a situation like this?
Okay. In my notes, like 3 sentences down, I wrote, Shereese, what would you do in this situation?
I have an answer for that.
Okay. So I do have an answer for that, because I had a feeling you might ask. And because I was going to ask you the same question, I was like, ooh, if she turns it back on me, I need to know what to say. First off, I would have us do an immediate scan of, like, you know, I do a sensor sweep of the immediate area to determine if there is some sort of imminent threat. If there isn't, let's stop everything and figure out who we are and what we're doing out here. Once we figure out who we are and what we're doing, then we can start looking at dynamics between the crew and like what maybe needs to get done, you know, like then you can, you know, it's just triage. You're in triage mode in my mind, where it's like, is there a bird of prey uncloaking? Is there some sort of ship that's firing on us? It doesn't matter who's who, whoever is closest to the, you know, photon torpedo button, push the button, you know, to defend us, or shields, or impulse power, or warp power, whatever we need, right? But if there isn't if there is no threat nearby, like, let's take everything one step at a time. Let's back this all the way up and start from the beginning. Like, what is the ship? Who are we? Who are we to the ship in terms of like, what's our
mission?
Yeah. What's our mission? What's our role? And like, what the heck are we doing out here? What would you do? What's your thought?
Yeah, well, just to piggyback on what you just said, or maybe have a follow-up thought, is if you don't know who you are, I feel like it'd be hard to know who's a threat or what's a threat. Like, unless the ship knew, which the ship seemed pretty down at this moment. But unless the ship, because ships, you know, in sci-fi, ships can identify threats because they have stuff inside of them that tells them. So if we're assuming the Enterprise could tell them threats are around, then I think that is a great first step. And I'm also thinking, like, they probably wouldn't recognize that a bird of prey is a bad thing unless that memory was still there.
Well, I figured if you're like, if a ship is firing on you, then it's like, okay, shields up, let's get out of here, fire back. But yeah, if there's a ship that just uncloaks, I'd be like, hey,
do you know who we are?
Yeah.
Are you my dad? So I didn't even think about that. But
I guess that answers Riker's question to who's your daddy. Yeah. So
it's me. Yeah. So that's a really good idea for a first step, which I didn't even think about. So I would like to change my answer to be like, look for threats, people. Something just went down. But I didn't have that. What I had was I would do exactly what Picard did, where I would start with our identities, like, who are we? Because This actually reminds me of an approach in healthcare called alert and oriented times 4. And this is just an approach that people take in healthcare to see how people's mental states are. And so they ask these questions like, do you know your name? Do you know where you are? Do you know what day it is today? Do you know what's happening around you? So those are kind of the 4 questions that are asked to assess someone's mental state. And wherever they stop, like, let's say they know their name, they know where they are, but they don't know anything else. Then you're like, okay, they're alert oriented times 2. So they've lost some of their short-term memory. Maybe there's been some brain injury, et cetera, et cetera.
That is so interesting. I've always wondered about that because I've had like medical emergencies before where like I've had paramedics come get me twice in my life, I think. And both times they were like, what's your name? What year is it? Do you know who the president is? Like, like it's asking like short term, long term, you know, like what did you have for breakfast this morning? And I was always like,
why do these questions matter?
Like, why do these questions matter? But also like, I know I'm fine. Can't I just tell you I'm fine? But I think a lot of it too is,
no,
you know, when you're in shock. Yeah. When you're in shock or you might have like a broken neck or a broken back, like you may not feel it, you know, but like, so you're like, no, I'm good. And it's like, you're actually not though. You're not. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. So that would definitely be my first thing would be like, do we know who we are? And in this case, they're learn oriented times 0. They don't even know who they are. So to me, that screams brain injury, brain damage, like something like that. And that is a big deal because if you can't orient to who you are, you certainly can't orient to all the other questions. What day is it? What's happening? What's going on? What is this ship? What's a ship? Why are we on this ship? What's the mission? Like there's all those other questions all bleed out of who you are as a person. Like I can't imagine this scenario seems extremely freaky and scary, except for the fact that's a little consoling that the entire ship is going through the same thing. So it's kind of like, okay, well, at least it's not just me personally. It's like this has to be some technology or something
has done infection. This to all of us.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's like a little bit of consoling idea, I guess.
Okay, that's interesting though. That's interesting. So, you know what? It is nice to know. Like we do very quickly learn. Like this is a ship-wide thing. In sickbay, Beverly is still there with like the crew member who's in the bathing suit, who injured herself on like a diving platform holodeck program. And she's like, ouch, this hurts. And Beverly doesn't think, she doesn't pause. She just picks up the tool and knows how to use it to ease the patient's pain. So she's like, okay, at least I know how to do my job, even if I don't know who I am. Like, this is really interesting. So short term, like, it's not a short term. They're both long-term memory. Like your identity is your longest term memory that you have. But Beverly has been a doctor for like 1 million years. So that's also really long-term, you know, like how to use these tools. So it's like some memory has been wiped.
So now, you know, others have been left. Memory loss, which is different from, I want to say like traditional amnesia or whatever, but it's different from regular amnesia where it's either, you know, short term, or it's like a specific brain injury where this part of the brain was damaged. So all the memories there are gone. Yeah. This is like a very specific deletion of or hiding of facts. Like, you know how to do your job, you know how to run the whole ship. Like everybody knows what to do, how to do it, when to do it. I feel like if they saw a bird of prey, they'd be like, oh, danger, shields up. Like, I feel like they would even still know that, but they just don't know who they are and what their mission is.
Yeah.
That is some really impressive technology.
It is. And it's a really, really interesting way to write this episode too. Now, Worf has assumed command, so it's kind of cool to see Worf in the captain's chair. And
like
Riker like a total boss, like he's kind of doing like the Riker lean a little bit in his chair.
Sure is. I mean, that's how him and Kalar were. Do you remember that episode where him and Kalar pretended to be the captain and first officer? That's how they were sitting in those chairs.
Really?
Yeah, they were both like leaned to the side, like what's up?
Like a gangster lean a little bit, or you're like, okay.
It was very cool. And we see Picard like in the back tapping away at buttons, which I thought was hilarious. Seeing Picard at a workstation.
It reminds me a little bit of that episode in season 6 or 7 where he dies. Like his heart defibrillator thingy, and Q brings him back as like a lowly little science officer, and he's just like beep boop boop beep in the background. You're like, oh, look at you, Picard. So Riker and Ro are working very well together when you take their egos out of the equation, which is this blank slate thing that I think is such an interesting social experiment. They don't know each other at all. He is much kinder and gentler. Like Riker is so much kinder and gentler to Ro when she's like, I just need to be doing something. Like, I can't feel out of control like this. Like, this stresses me out. And he's like, I know we're all going through this. Let's just kind of work this through as a team. Whereas, had this been 15 minutes ago, he'd be like, get it together, Ro, or like whatever it is that he would say.
Well,
that's like,
and
you're
she'd
part of a crew and blah, blah,
right.
blah.
And she'd be in the back rerouting systems and whatnot without telling anybody anything, getting in a shuttlecraft, flying away. She's like, what are you doing? And she would not be able to articulate. I just have this feeling that I need to do something. Like, I feel like the same thing on her part, that she was being more vulnerable and articulating why she does what she does, which she wouldn't have done 15 minutes ago.
She would not have. And, as the crew is kind of working together, Worf is getting more and more irritated with Picard by the minute. Did you notice that?
Yes.
Picard has some very good suggestions and advice and ideas. And as they're talking as a team, all of his ideas are really great. And Worf is like trying to be like the warrior king over here. And Picard is like, perhaps we should use some logic and do these 3 things first. And Worf is just side-eyeing him like crazy. And I was like, okay. Now, the next thing we see, Riker and Ro are working extremely well together and getting their flirt on as they're walking around the, different, they're doing it deck by deck, checking in with everybody in their quarters. They're like, we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Let's just
Which, by the way, I thought was completely pointless, because when they first went to go check on people, they had no way to communicate with other parts of the ship. But when we see them checking in on people, Geordi has already reestablished communications throughout the ship. And they're already like, beep, beep. Hey, Riker, what's going on down there? Beep, beep.
Yeah.
Oh, we're just walking through the hall. Okay, well, y'all can beep, beep everybody. What are you doing?
Yeah.
There are 1,000 people on this ship. Why are you going from room to room saying hello? Like, seeing that everybody else, I don't know.
It felt a little Jehovah's Witness to me, if I'm honest. It was like knocking door to door.
Yeah.
But there's like 500 quarters in this ship. So it's like, it's kind of a lot. Yeah, you don't need to like door to door Girl Scout cookie sell. It was a lot. And Worf had already said, like, okay, each deck select like a group leader to report to the bridge. So yeah, they don't.
So what happened with that?
You know what? I think it is. They needed something to do.
Yeah, they just needed to show. They needed to show Ro and Riker having moments. But I felt like they had a moment when they were on the bridge. That felt like a moment.
I know, but they're like in front of everyone. Here they're kind of on their own. They're like walking around together. She is flirting with him hard. He is eating it up. I feel like this is some very dangerous territory. Your memory has been wiped. You don't know who you are. You could be married or something.
But but that's exactly why she can do it, because now it's a blank slate. Like, some people could look at this and say, I better not do anything because I could irreparably damage something I don't even know, right? Some mysterious past of mine that I'm unaware of. But other people could look at it and say, this is an opportunity for me to reinvent myself any way I want, with kind of like a blank check, because I don't even know the past that I'm supposedly harming, right? Like, she could be married, but she is not. She's completely single, and so is he.
Well, but they don't know that.
But they don't know that they're not either.
Okay, so what would you do?
I don't know. Like, I don't have an answer to that, but I just feel like, yes, they could be married, but they could also be single. Like, they could also have that thought, like, I could be a completely single person, hooking up with another completely single person, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I kind of see Ro's point of saying, that, like, I'm kind of uninhibited now.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to play it safe in general as a person. So I probably wouldn't be as like flamboyant, but I also wouldn't blame her. Like, I'd be like, okay, like when we got our memories back, I wouldn't be like, I can't believe you did that. It's like all of our memories are wiped. We didn't know.
Yeah. Well, here's what I say to this is, I would say, okay, you might be single. I might be single. This might be a lot of fun. It could still be a lot of fun once our memories are returned. Like, if we're getting our flirt on and we have good chemistry, we can circle back in 2 weeks and see where we're at and see if we want to hook up or whatever. But if it turns out that I'm married or that I'm, committed to somebody else, this could irreparably damage something. While I don't know what it is now, it's Star Trek. They're going to reset back to zero.
We know that, but they don't know that. Yeah.
A week later, well, even for them, it's like, we're probably not going to be in this situation forever. We're working on different solutions to try to get our memory back, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to do anything to jeopardize anything right now. And if I'm flirting with somebody and I'm having a little flirt, I'll be like, okay, when our memories are brought back, let's see where we're at. and see
what
if we still want to hook up.
What if their memories don't come back for like 10 years?
Okay, I know, but but it's been like 1 hour.
It's been like 15 minutes. An hour. It's been like 15 minutes. But I'm saying, like, was there a time frame
if you
on
don't
this?
get your listen, yes.
Okay.
If you don't because if it's been 5 years and you still don't have your memories back, it's like, all right, listen, it's 5 years is even a long wait. If it's a year, it's like, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and jump on top of this hookup train. Okay. But if it's been 15 minutes, maybe we should just wait and see, because this person who's serving next to us might be my husband or my wife. I don't know. Anyway,
I'm going to give you that. They could have waited a little more than 15 minutes, but I don't think waiting forever and ever, even a year, to me sounds really long for you to not. You have to build your new identity, like, to function. You have to have an identity.
You do.
So a year feels like way too long, but an hour feels like
way too short.
Yeah, like maybe rushing it a little bit.
Yeah,
like, I feel like back tomorrow.
What would be an appropriate amount of time? Like, if you don't get your memories back, maybe like 3 months. Like, okay, it's been like 3 months. My memory still hasn't come back. It might be time to start making, 15 minutes. That's a little, but
that's a good question. I don't know.
Right?
Okay, so if you're listening to this conversation we're having right now, if we didn't cut it out, email us to info@the TNG Podcast and let us know what a reasonable time frame would be. Like, that's a really good question, because I think it's not going to be the same for all, and I get that. But I think there should be a time frame. There should be a clock on this, and it should be more. I think it should be more than an hour, more than a day, like a little bit more.
I feel like a couple of months is probably good. 3-4 months. I'm like, right, I'm not getting my memory back. Time
not working.
To start. Mm-hmm. This isn't working. 10 years, too long for me.
Well, thankfully they find out who the crew is like 2 minutes after this conversation.
Yeah. So. I mean, they
names. Don't find out any of their personal details, though.
No, they just get duties and responsibilities.
They get their names.
Say this. Yeah. I will say this. Had this been like Barclay, he would have waited like 6 years to try to make a move, right? Because he's not impulsive like that. And Rolaren is nothing but impulsivity, right? Mm-hmm. So like, she's the perfect character to pull the trigger on this kind of thing.
100%. Mm-hmm.
Now Riker and Ro end up going into 10 forward, and Troy is like, there's somebody unique here I want you to meet. This is Data. He's an artificial life form. Data is still behind the bar, like asking people what they want to drink, which I think is just like the cutest thing ever.
It's so Data, right? He's just like, can I get you a beverage, sir?
Yeah. And they're like,
I must be the bartender.
No,
okay.
No. Yeah. Where is Guinan in all this? She would have had a sense about this, but whatever.
We couldn't have Guinan in this episode because this scan probably wouldn't have even worked on her.
It probably wouldn't have. Or if it would have, she would have had the sense, like yesterday's Enterprise, where she's part of the alternate reality, but she's like, this isn't right. Troy gets the Imzadi sense from Riker, though. She's like, for a moment, I don't know, I see something. And like, they get called, senior staff gets called to the bridge. And did you notice that Rose sees Troy as a little bit of a threat? She kind of like looks back on her, like when they're walking, like when she's walking out with Riker, to be like, who's this chick? Now, we do get the personnel files up and running. So let's check out the crew manifest. Did you notice that we got birthdays for a bunch of crew members?
No.
Oh my God, Shereese. Captain Picard's birthday is July 13th. Data's birthday, which is, I guess, date of activation, is February 2nd. And it's all like, 24, whatever,
Did you see this on the screen, or did the computer say this out loud?
Screen. It was on the screen.
Oh, okay. I didn't read the screen.
So like when it, it just had the picture and it said the name and the chief medical officer, whatever. The camera was not looking at the screen for Riker. But Beverly's is October 13th, which I think is kind of cute that Beverly and Picard were both on the 13th, and Troy is March 23rd. And I don't know what it was. I do not follow astrology at all. But as soon as I saw Troy's birthday was March 23rd, I'm like, you would. Like, I don't know why. But I was like, you're such a March 23rd. I have
whatever
no
that
idea
means.
Why. Whatever that means. It's like when you meet a dog and you're like, you're totally a rover or whatever. It's like, that just seems to fit. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Anyway, so if you were born on July 13th or February 2nd or October 13th or March 23rd, you share a birthday with one of the senior crews, which is kind of cool. Anyway.
And that when that is revealed, and we find out that McDuff is the first officer or whatever, and we find out that Worf is the chief of security, so he's still the chief of security.
Man, was he bummed. He was like way down here.
He looks so embarrassed. Especially for someone who's all about honor and duty and doing what's right. This faux pas is a big deal. I think anybody would have been embarrassed in this situation. But Worf, I think, is going to be the most embarrassed that anyone could be in this situation. But I really appreciate that he apologized to Picard, because he didn't have to. He could have just been like, well, I didn't know. You know, like he could have been really like, so what? So what? I didn't know.
You know what? I mean? He really pulled that, like, I apologize for my behavior. I was like, wow.
I was really impressed too. And Picard's response was extremely gracious. He was just like, he said, Mr. Worf, we're all doing the best we can in a difficult situation. Think nothing more of it. And I just loved that response.
Class.
This is why he's the captain. And you're not Worf. Sorry, bud.
Now, they do get some more information that is given to them in a briefing in the observation lounge. We're part of the United Federation of Planets. We're at war with the Lycian Alliance. They're a genocidal race. The Lycians use a weapon to disrupt the ship's computers and disable the crew's memory. And Macduff is like, that's what happened to us. And I was like, thank you, Macduff. Thanks. We really needed you to point that out.
Captain Obvious. I mean, Lieutenant Commander Obvious. Or whatever his rank is. I don't even know.
Commander Obvious. Yeah.
I'm like, what is like 3.5 pips? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they do say we are ordered to enter into Lycian space and destroy their central command. And it's the Edo God from Justice. That's the central command. I was like, all right. I do love that Troy is the one making the most sense in this whole episode. She's
Troy
like,
slayed in this episode. I'm like, I fucking did. Troy. Like,
she was using her mind.
Season 1.
She was using her brain. She was using her heart. She was using all of it.
Yes.
She was using all of it. You know what she wasn't using was her boobs, and I was cool with that. Thank you. That's not your only asset, girl. It's an asset, but it's not your only one.
She's never trying to use her boobs.
She knows
the writer's always trying to use her boobs.
Yeah.
She's not trying to use her boobs.
Devonani Rawls trying to use her boobs.
Exactly.
Jeff or whoever.
Some other creep. But she's trying to, she's slayed in this episode.
If our computer system has been compromised, we are going to want to get confirmation from Starfleet of our mission before we put thousands of lives at risk. And I wrote in all caps, thank you, Troy. Thank you. The Enterprise has been ordered to run radio silence in order not to be detected. And that was like, damn it, these people are good. Whoever Macduff and his crew is that's working on this has thought of everything. They've thought of everything.
Yes.
Don't contact Starfleet. We're running radio silent. You know, it reminded me very much of like World War II submarine warfare, where you had to run silent because if you pinged, you know, sound travels in water in 360 degrees. So it's really, really easy to detect like where you might be hiding. And that to me was like, yeah, we're running radio silent. And I was like, oh shit. But man, did they think of anything? But Troy, snaps to you, girl. She's the only one who was making this sense.
No one else had the thought. And then she was shut down quickly. I mean, of course, Macduff is going to shut her down because he's got the ulterior motive. But Worf jumps in and is like, no, that could give away a position. Data jumps in. But it's really important because we've been ordered not to. You know, we've been ordered in radio silence. Like everybody's on board with this whole, don't listen to Troy's brilliant idea. That could kill us all. And it's like, I thought about the episode A Matter of Time, which we reviewed a couple episodes ago, where there was that con man who said he was from the future, but really he was from the past and got his hands on a time machine by, like, you know,
Berlin
nefarious means. Yeah, worst name ever. And
I feel like we comment on that every episode now.
I agree. Until we have a one that tops it, I guess.
Yeah.
Which I don't think we're going to.
Worst name ever. Okay.
But yeah, that's what it reminded me of, where I was just like, man, this guy is like, this is the perfect con. Like you've conned them to go into war and you've made it so it's impossible, not impossible, but highly, highly, highly unlikely that they're going to double check with the Federation about these orders. I was like, man, this is a good con. Everyone's going to be like, well, we have to do it. We just have to go forward with it. And I just felt bad for Troy because I was like, girl, you were right. Everything you said was right. And if this is war and you do have to run radio silent, like if all this was true, they would have to not say anything to the Federation. They would have to keep going. But still, like you have every reason to feel extremely uneasy. And she goes on to say that many, many times. Like in the next scene, she's in her quarters and Riker's there. I think he walked her there or something.
He does. He walks her to her quarters.
Which is very sweet. And she's just saying, like, this doesn't feel right. The ship doesn't feel right. These like relationships with one another doesn't feel right. And certainly this war doesn't feel right. And Riker's just like, well, war never feels right, which again, perfect con. Cause you're right. Like war never feels right. Conflict
nobody's ever going to be psyched to be in a war unless you're a Klingon or maybe a Romulan. But that's otherwise, otherwise it's like, no, war never feels right. It never feels right. And she gets this like overwhelming, like familiar sense for him. And she's like, it's like I remember feeling emotions for you. And they're very, very positive. And she kind of like runs her fingers through his hair and he kind of like leans his face into it. And I was like, oh God, that is so cute. But they keep it professional, which I think is smart. Again, I'm like, let's not go rushing into relationships right now when you're like super vulnerable. But he's like, good night. And she says good night. And that's the end of it. Now Riker goes to his quarters. Did you notice the Horgon is there, on the table when he walks in? Yeah, it's right there. Right there. And then you see him
looking for some Jamaharone.
Yep.
This guy.
He he grins like a Cheshire cat. And when we see what he's grinning at, it's Rolaren curled up in the corner with a good book. And knowing Riker, it's probably the Kama Sutra. That's the only good book he's got in his quarters. And you know what? More power to him. Yeah.
Yeah. And can I just comment that Ro's dress is so freaking cute. And I think this is the first time and maybe the last time we ever see Ro in anything other than a uniform.
Except for in Half a Life when that guy had to like commit ritual suicide.
When she wasn't Rolaren.
When she wasn't Rolaren, but it's the only time we see Rolaren not dressed. Wait, doesn't she go undercover as Maquis or something at one point?
But that's like a Maquis. The Maquis have their own style too.
Yeah.
It's not a uniform, I guess.
This is she's just in like an off-duty cute little dress, which I'm here for.
And she looks super adorbs.
Very pretty. And they say the thing that I've been thinking. They're like, for all we know, we could be married. And she says, for all we know, we could hate each other. And I was like, bingo, that's the correct one. But it's really fun to see them in this like alt reality scenario.
Yeah.
And then the curtains billow and away they go.
Away they go all night long.
Okay.
And she says, like, I have a funny feeling that I spend most of my off hours here. Like, she just made that feeling up. Can we acknowledge that? That feeling never existed before.
You know what that's called? Flirting. Girl, you wouldn't come within 100 meters of Riker's quarters any other time. But okay, we're going to that's fine. Now, elsewhere on the Enterprise, a destroyer is moving to intercept the Enterprise. And Macduff is all too eager to fire upon this like Lycian ship. Now, keep in mind, this is all new territory because when the episode opened, they said they're investigating a series of subspace signals that may indicate intelligent life in a new sector. So they're in a completely new place, which is why we've never seen or heard of the Lycians before. But this like Lycian destroyer like comes towards the Enterprise and they try hailing the Enterprise and then fire upon them, and Macduff is all too eager to just like blast this thing out of the sky. And it's like, oh God.
And again, in this scene, there's so many like big red flags, right? This ship comes out of nowhere and they're kind of charging weapons, and Worf is like, we have to fire, and Macduff is like, that's the spirit. And then Picard's like, wait, Data, what are their weapons? And Data's like, they have like a photon torpedo or whatever. They don't even have photon torpedoes. It's like they've got a really big rock. Like that's all they got. Like they are not a threat
and
to
some
us.
Sticks.
Yeah. And the sticks aren't even on fire. They're just regular sticks. So it's like they've got we are under zero threat from this ship. Like we don't even need shields. They're not going to harm our ship. And Picard's like, that's weird. So then he goes, well, maybe we should just talk to them and kind of see, maybe we can diplomat our way out of this because Picard's a diplomat. And Macduff's like, no, you can't. That's how their technology works for all we know. You open up the hailing frequencies and they're going to wipe our minds and destroy us all, which again, perfect con job.
Perfect con.
Could totally work that way.
You have to run silent. You can't open hailing frequencies. You just have to fire on everything you see. We're in a war. We are the linchpin to a coordinated effort that spent years. Starfleet has spent years putting all the pieces in the right place to like execute this Order 66. Like this is the perfect con. It really, really is.
It really is. So then Picard's like, oh, well, I guess we can't open hailing frequencies because if they wipe our minds, that's going to be bad. And then while he's thinking, the other ship, the Lycian ship's like, man, F this. So they just start charging their weapons. And Worf's like, all right, they're charging. And then, I guess they fire or something. I don't know. The Enterprise takes exactly one shot. And the Lycian ship explodes into a million pieces.
On the toast setting. And it just blows it. I mean, did you notice the visual was really cool? For the first like half a second, the Enterprise's phasers are hitting the shield of the Lycian ship. But it takes like half a second to breach the shields, and then it hits the ship. And the second it hits the ship, the whole thing goes up. And I don't know if you noticed that, but it was like shield, ship. when I was like, wow, that was actually really cool.
I just noticed it blowing up and I thought to myself, you couldn't have disabled it, because if you disable the ship,
tractor beam.
Well, yeah, even like disable it and, disable their systems. Well, then they can't use their scary weapon against you. Now you can trap the ship. You can investigate their scary weapon. You can make that weapon your own weapon. You can interrogate the crew. Like, you have a lot of options here that, by the way, would not slow down their mission one iota. Disable the ship, tractor it into the Enterprise, or tractor it behind you and send out a shuttle, in case you don't want to bring it in because it may have a bomb or whatever. But like, they could have done that while they're still on their way to the command center.
Yes.
There was no reason to destroy the ship, but
absolutely.
They destroyed it. It was sad.
They do. And McDuff goes, well done, Captain. Like, he's a little too bloodthirsty.
Yes.
Did you notice that Picard didn't look at McDuff, but had the steely look where I thought Picard is sensing some red flags about McDuff right now? Like, he had this very steely look. But nobody should be congratulating you for like ending a bunch of people's lives. And that was for me where I was like, this is Picard is like, about this guy.
Now, I feel like it was more Picard feeling some kind of way about what he just did, what he just ordered. But it could have been both.
I saw it as like, okay, there's something isn't quite right with this guy. Now, Beverly has researched their case and found some similar treatment in all memory loss cases. You need to kind of like stimulate this long-term memory, see if you can like unlock those doors, Data and Geordi start working on pulling more info out of the computer,
trying to get the medical files so Beverly can do some brain scans and fix their brains.
Now, what they do find is a very big They find that medical records, crew logs, and all of these things that pertain to specifics about the crew have all been deleted. And it was done in such a way that like would have been hard to detect. But of course, this is the Enterprise. This is the Geordi and Data like Wonder Team. They're going to turn over every stone. They're going to search for everything. Now, it's like, this is actually a problem. Somebody is specifically hiding our identities from us. And that is really, really bad news. There was this super cute moment just after this where Riker's in his quarters and he's chilling and we hear the little doorbell and Troy comes in and Troy is very sweet and very honest. She says, I'm restless. Do you mind if I just visit with you for a while? And I thought, what vulnerability. This is lovely. Instead of, Ro coming over here to like bang Riker. And she's like, we may hate each other. I'm over here. Like, I didn't like the way my quarters were decorated. Like she's all about that flirt game. And Troy is not trying to flirt. She's just like, I'm restless and I feel very uneasy. Can I just talk with you? And I was like, I love just the honesty of it all. I really love that she didn't have any ulterior motive. She just wanted to visit, and she's like, everything is wrong. The mission, the crew, this war, like all of it feels wrong. And he gives her this book and the inscription says like, to Will with all my love, Deanna. And he's like, maybe that might explain some of the like familiar feelings between us. And she does the hair caress again and they go to kiss and the harp starts playing. And then Ro pops by and ruins it. And I was like, God, Ro.
Yeah, and Ro is like such a boss. She walks in and basically steps between the two of them and is like, "Weren't you just leaving, Troy? Okay, bye." Yeah, and Troy's like, "Yeah, okay, bye.
I'll see you tomorrow, Commander.
See you later." And then like the second she walks out, Ro is like, "Was there something going on? Okay, good, because I feel like I used to be the jealous type," and starts making out with Riker. She's like, if she was a dog, she would have peed on him. She is all about claiming her territory, and she doesn't care who sees.
You're so right. Like, she's fearless about it.
She's fearless.
when Troy very quickly runs out with her hair bouncing behind her, Ro goes, bye, and just like basically kicks her out and locks the door. That was
her version of slamming the door behind her, but there's no doors to slam.
Yeah. She hit the slam button on the panel and it just slowly closed. Yeah. It's like trying to hang up on somebody with iPhones, with smartphones. You can't hit the button hard enough that makes it sound slammy.
Yeah.
Anyway. So Crusher's like, shit, all files that could tell me about who the crew is or anything like have all been deleted, like no medical history, nothing. She's like, okay, I do want to try this long-term memory, like restoring scan thing. And McDuff is like, we must try it at any risk. Like, I'll volunteer for this. And it goes badly immediately. Now, Crusher scans him with a tricorder. Like, he starts, like, convulsing, right? Like, as soon as the scan happens. And she's like, something's wrong. Stop the scan. So she stops the scan. She scans him with the tricorder. Knowing what we know at the end, how does she not see from the tricorder reading that he's not human?
Well, but his costume or his, his covering, however he did this, clearly we know they've got sophisticated technology. It was sophisticated enough to delete very specific memories and very specific files and Data's memories. So I just think his like transmutation technology is really on point.
I guess so.
It has to be.
Like,
otherwise,
girl,
we
know by the end he's not human. Something's wrong here. Yeah, like you're not. But you have 7 livers. This is weird. Yeah.
I think whatever fake plastic surgery, hologrammy, whatever he has is really good and convincing is my explanation for that. But that's a really good question I didn't think about. What I did think about was like, this mofo, of course he's going to be so quick to raise his hand because it's the perfect freaking con job. I volunteer for this procedure. And then by making himself convulse on the bed, it makes it way too dangerous for her to try it with anyone else on the crew. I was like, dang, this was really well done.
He's very smart. He's
good.
Very, very smart.
And then you see his creepy little smile when she walks away and you're just like, oh, I hate this guy.
Yeah, like, I hate him so much.
Yeah. How can anybody find out the truth? He's so good at this. And that's another reason why I really like this story, because you cannot poke holes in this man's story. Like the way he's creating all of the confusion and doubt and misdirection is really masterfully done.
Yeah, no, it really, really is. And that, after he's had some time to like recuperate, apparently, Picard calls him to his ready room and he's got some really grave concerns about this mission. He's like, how can this attack be justified? And Macduff is like, I'm so glad to hear you say that.
No resistance, and they were so easy to destroy.
Yeah, like the one time we've had contact with the Lycians, it took us like 2 seconds to completely destroy the ship. Like the balance of power is like way, way off here. Like something is wrong here. And I love that. Again, there's kind of no poking holes in this guy's story because Macduff says, I'm really glad to hear you say that. I too have been having some serious doubts. I also have been wondering about this, but it is our mission. But it is our mission and we are the linchpin. So how many lives could be lost if we don't carry out the mission? We got to kind of do this. And I was like, God damn, you're good. Did you notice the exterior shot? I love this shot. Macduff leaves him with his thoughts and we have an exterior shot of Picard looking out the window pensively. And I was like, this is really good stuff.
Yeah, because the door opens as Macduff goes back onto the bridge and you see from the outside window outside of the ship, you see Picard and then behind him an open door and then the view screen of stars. Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, I don't
recall having seen that particular shot ever before in the show. A shot with the doors open and the bridge view screens on stars.
Maybe not, but there was a moment where Riker in Best of Both Worlds had to think about, whether he could kill his captain. And then when Picard is back from being Locutus of Borg, he also looks out the window of his ready room, but you don't see like the doors to the ready room open and then like the stars on the other side of the like view screen. It was really, really cool. Anyway, now Macduff is starting to put all his pieces together. He calls for Worf for the secret meeting. We are warriors in a war bit. He does all this, can I count on you when the moment arises bullshit on Worf. And Worf is like, yes, we are warriors.
But and then Worf works out. Yeah, he walks out.
Worf is like,
what the F was that about?
Yeah, he really was. As soon as Worf walked out of the room where they were having the secret meeting, which I guess was like Macduff's quarters, his face looked really concerned. It's like, you know what? You're behaving like a Romulan. You are not behaving like a Klingon. And I was like, okay.
I think Worf's onto you, buddy. You might have played one too many cards in that hand.
Even trigger happy Worf gets his spidey senses tingling that something is wrong, right? Where it's like something is wrong here. Now they enter Lycian space. There's 3 or 4 Sentry ships that come to meet them. They take them out like pinballs, like pew, 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 done. Did you notice the Enterprise just rolls by the exploded Sentry ships on like quarter impulse power? Was like walking and took them out. It was like not even trying.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Best of Both Worlds when the Borg cube was coming to Earth and the sentries came out from like Mars or whatever.
Jupiter or something. Yeah.
And it was like 2 little shuttles or whatever. And the Borg cube was like, pew, pew. And they were just gone. And the ship's like, we will. They didn't even bother assimilating the people in those ships.
No,
okay?
they're like, beep, beep. Yeah, done.
They just destroyed them. And they didn't even slow down to fire their weapons. They just rolled down the windows.
You know what they did? They just kept
going. Yeah, it was like, holy cow. Like, we're so outmatched by them. And this is the reverse now. Instead of it being the Borg and the humans being decisively outmatched. In this case, we've got the humans, we've got the Federation, and we've got these Lysians who are just decisively outmatched. They're the only little sentries they had. They took them out in like one spread of photons. And then they see no more sentries on the whole trip from there to the command center. Like not one other ship. It was like
not even a little. Now, there's no defensive capabilities of note on this central command station. 15,300 lives aboard the station, which, by the way, Troy was the one who asked how many lives aboard. At this point, McDuff is like, we have to attack. And I love that Picard takes a moment and he's like, I do not fire on like defenseless people. Like, this is wrong. And things start to unravel pretty quickly for McDuff. Like, his life spirals out of control really fast. He attempts a mutiny. He's like, there's something wrong with that captain. I'm taking control, right? And Worf is like, nah, dude.
Yeah, he runs over to Worf and he's like, Worf, fire. Remember what we talked about? Remember our secret conversation? And Worf is just like, just staring at him, immovable. And he's like, that didn't work. Okay, stand aside. I'm going to fire. And they're like, and he tosses Worf like a rag doll. Worf's little wig goes flying as he hits the back wall. I don't know if you noticed that. His wig is like flying all around.
I was like, notice it. I really did.
That looks like that hurt his stunt double. That was like a really...
I love it. You're like, Worf's little wig goes flying around. It really is. And I just thought, I hope that they're paying him for every time his character gets the shit kicked out of him, because it just makes Worf look lower and lower in our estimation. What kind of warrior race are you, dude? Like,
I wouldn't want to
like
fight
a little kid could kick him in the shins and he goes down hard and rolls around, like his wig goes flying around, like
his wig goes flying. Oh my god.
It's the Worf effect. It's the Worf effect. So this is how we know that McDuff is strong AF, because he throws Worf across the bridge.
While everyone is just staring, like, what is going on right now? Mm-hmm. Apparently no one took his whole mutiny claims too seriously. No one's jumping like, to be like, I down. Yeah, they're all just looking at him really like, literally everyone's going, I wonder what's going to happen next. They're all just looking at him.
Well, I think at this point, it's really obvious that like the Lysians had no defensive capabilities. There's 15,000 people aboard, right? 15,000 plus. This ship has like, even Riker's like, what kind of like formidable opponent to us would be 100 years behind on weapons technology. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This something is really wrong here. So at this point, the whole crew has clued into like something is super wrong here. Mm-hmm. And like, at this
Riker
point,
says we could take them all out with a single photon
like
torpedo.
One photon torpedo can take them out.
That's crazy.
There's something wrong here. Now, Riker jumps up with a phaser, and where did he get that phaser from? I don't know. And like, he fires on McDuff, and McDuff's like, humanistic cloaking technology is like disrupted, and so you see the alien underneath, and everybody's like
reptilian type thing or whatever behind it, and
it's like a
it almost looked like a burn. To me, it looked like
lagoon.
It looked like the burn pattern when Riker killed Uta,
yes,
or whatever
Uta.
her name was. Yeah, Uta, when she was, when he phasered her to death and she kind of like burned up. So that's what I thought was happening. I was like, oh my gosh, is he burning up on the bridge? But then I thought it was just kind of like this inner look was unveiled for a second. Yes. And then boom, his whole human, everything was back. And I was like, what? Because I didn't remember that part. Like, I remember he was a total fraud, but I didn't remember he was wearing a fake human meat suit.
Yeah, he really was,
or whatever. So the cloak was disrupted.
Something,
but he was not hurt at all. He stumbled back like 2 steps and then went right back to the control panel. Yeah, and then Worf fires on him, and you see it happen again. He's like, ugh, but he's still fine. And then Worf and Riker fire on him. I'm like, oh my, how many? That's how you know he's really strong. Not just because Worf is weak, but it took 3 phaser hits set to toast. To finally knock him down. And that's all that it didn't even look like it killed him to me. It looked like it just kind of...
It didn't kill him. It
made him pass out.
It stunned him, yes. And like, I actually thought this was a really great thing because if you get your memory back and you have to go explaining to Starfleet and the Lysians why you did this, and it's like, well, he died like Utah did way back when.
Oh, right.
We're like, we don't even have
no proof
like,
he was there.
There's no proof he was there. It's like, oh, I mean, I guess you could do like tricorder scans of that patch of carpet and find like atomic residue or something.
But having his body's a lot better.
Way better, right? Way better. Right.
I didn't think about that. How you explain yourself with no proof whatsoever because he was disintegrated.
Here's the thing. It kind of flashes forward where they're like, cool, threat has been neutralized. Beverly's been working steadily to restore the memory of the crew, you know, so it's been like a couple days at least. Now, Riker is sitting down with Picard in his ready room, and he says, so we know that like Macduff was a Suteran, an alien race that had been at war with the Lysians for years. And Picard extended his deepest regrets to the Lysians over the loss of their ships and their crew member. And I thought, that's it? How do you go, hey, so like we killed a bunch of your people, but in our defense, our memories had been wiped and we didn't know what was happening. So sorry, guys. Like, I'm sorry. No. No. I'd be like, you killed a bunch of our people and you didn't know what you were doing. Okay, well, I'm going to need more than an I'm sorry from you because...
I mean, but what could they give? And what could they ask for? They can't give the people's lives back, right? We have this conversation a lot about justice, right? What does that look like?
Yeah.
In the case of a murder, and it's like never satisfying.
It's never satisfying because you can never ever get the person
the lives back. Which is what we want. Yeah.
But it's like this. It's like the same to me as being like, well, we can never get the lives back, so might as well let them go. It's like, but still, somebody has to pay something for what they did because people died. Like people's family members are now not coming home tonight because of something you did. So that to me, I was like, you just extended your apology. Like the F. I was like, I'm sorry. That's not even remotely enough. But okay. Here's a question I did have. If Macduff had access to the ship's computers and he could rewrite, you know, the like crew manifest and all that, why didn't he just make himself the captain? Like it makes no sense to me to make himself the first officer that now has to like foment insurrection. Just be the captain, make Worf your second and, you know, your second officer, or your second in command. So now you have two warriors in command that like agree on this plan and like, boom, there's none of this
nonsense.
No.
Yeah, that's a valid question. And I remember you'd asked that question to me off camera. And I was like, yeah, like, why didn't he do that? Because he already set it up so that they couldn't check in with the Federation. If they checked in with the Federation, they would need Picard to be the face of it. However, they would immediately find out from the Federation that all of this is false. So like that wouldn't work for too long.
Yeah.
The question that I had following up on this question is, or why didn't he use this technology on the Lysians?
Yeah.
That would have been even faster. We don't need the Enterprise at all. We can just...
Right. Like you could just totally...
take over their whole entire society. You could brainwash all of them and tell them that they are the servants of the Suterans, that they are, you know, trade partners with the Suterans. You could have made peace with their entire race and said, we're actually at peace with the Suterans. I mean, you could have done absolutely anything with that technology.
You could have done so many things.
And this makes no sense. This choice makes no sense. So
it makes no sense to me, but I guess there has to be some way for the crew to like, you know, realize something's wrong with Macduff and take control. I don't know, whatever. But I was like, man, why didn't you just make yourself the captain? Like, this doesn't make sense. Anyway.
Still love this episode.
It's such a good episode.
Despite those little loopholes.
There's some loopholes, but it's such a good episode. Now, the very last scene we have is Riker comes in to 10 forward and he finds his worst nightmare. Laren and Deanna Troi are having a very friendly chit chat. And he's like, red alert, battle stations, right? Like, he's like, oh, God, right? And I love that the ladies just fuck with him like a cat with a mouse.
Did you like how when he sat down, he said, I'm so happy that I ran into the two of you because I really wanted to speak to both of you at the same time. Something like that. It was like the most opposite of the meaning. Like, this is the most awkward conversation I've ever seen Riker have.
I love that Laren and Deanna are both looking at each other like, let him finish, just see what he has to say, and then we'll pounce on him. And Laren says, it's all right, Commander. I was talking to Counselor counselor, Troy. And she told me that like a lot of this was like things that we had subconsciously been wanting to do, but we're afraid to act on it. So like our like bondage, you know, like got to happen because the emotional and ego constraints were like removed. So this is kind of like fun, you know? And he's like, she said that. And Deanna's like, it is psychologically sound. And so, you know, Rolaren flounces off to the bridge and Riker goes, I am just like so confused. And she says, well, if you're still confused tomorrow, you know where my office is, and like walks off. And I was like, this right here is why you don't have sex with anyone when your memory is wiped. Okay. Unfortunately, if your memory is wiped, you'll forget this rule and then you'll do it anyway. So
that's a very good point. Or maybe you won't forget this rule. You'll just forget other things mysteriously. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? I don't really get this ending, like, except that I guess it's supposed to be funny and maybe give us some closure because we need to talk about the fact that they slept together. Is maybe what I'm thinking. But at the very end, I was kind of like, I don't get it. Like, we just were in 10 forward and we're seeing Riker stare out the window. I was like, I don't get it.
Yes.
But maybe that's why.
So I feel like we could have ended it. There, but it was supposed to be funny. But I actually really, really enjoyed seeing, you know how like Riker and Troy have this history, they have this deep love for each other, spoiler alert, in like Nemesis, I think it is, like they get married and all this stuff, right? Like they have this like destiny together and they've always been cheerleading each other. And when she met Aaron Connor last week in the Masterpiece Society, Riker was very supportive. It's all very nice and sweet, but it's not realistic. And I do like to see that this is a little bit more realistic, where she's like, okay, see ya, right? Like she's a little bit miffed about this sort of transgression that like Riker has done, even though they're not together. It's not just like, gosh, I'm so happy for you that you got laid while our memory was wiped. Awesome. Let's have tea tomorrow morning. Right.
But that's the thing is, I feel like
bit more realistic.
I feel like nobody's really upset because she's just like kind of smiling and smirking, and so is Ro. And they to me don't seem upset at all. They just were like,
oh, they don't, the ladies don't seem upset. But when Rolaren leaves, Deanna seems a little pissed at Riker. She's like, well, if you're still confused tomorrow, you know where my office is. And she does one of these like smiles that's like, I'm smiling at you, but there's nothing but fire underneath it. I was like, ooh, okay, Riker, you're in deep shit now. Oh my gosh. It is such a good, fun episode. I love this episode. It's just kind of got everything. It's got everything. It's like a cozy blanket. It really is. It's got all the familiarity, but it has these like new dynamics between the cast and the crew. I just love this episode. What's your thought on this one?
Yeah, that was well put, right? It's got all the familiar faces and they're all playing new roles, which is always really fun. My final thoughts was that Troy is so clutch in this episode.
God, yeah.
That, and I just put, in my notes, I am just loving season 5 Troy. I'm just loving her, like episode after episode. The last several episodes we've had, I've just been like, yeah, Troy was right. Yeah, Troy figured it out. Ooh, look at Troy breaking down the psychology of that situation. Oh my gosh. Like I am just obsessed with season 5 Troy. Like, love her so much. Everything that I hated about season 1 Troy is everything that's not true about season 5 Troy. She is she's clutch. She's everything. Like, just loved her in this episode. And I love the mystery of this episode. I love that this feels like a classic mind control episode, but with a twist.
Yes.
Right. Because this time we're not controlling your mind. We're just deleting your memories, which surprisingly has the same effect, which is just such a fascinating idea. Right.
It really is. And I just thought, usually in Star Trek and in kind of any sci-fi, when it's like ship versus ship, like in a battle, they have to be similarly sized in order to be an equal sort of threat to each other. But do you remember how freaking tiny that little ship was that like scanned them and wiped their memory? Look at this. It was like a one-man ship that took over the entire, it was like a shuttlecraft that took over the entire Enterprise and like had it destroy several lives and almost had it destroy, like end a war for them. That's incredibly impressive. And I did remember reading that the writers were disappointed by like how this like screenplay ended up sort of morphing from like the soldiers with the implanted memories into this. But I don't know, man. I think this is just so good. It's got everything.
I just think it's a really great story. I think the heart of their story is still here. It still shines through. And I think that part, the idea that someone could be forced to fight, but not even know that they're being forced, is a very fascinating idea. And I think it's novel, and I think it was done beautifully. So I see the disappointment because you don't feel that same heaviness at the end, but at the same time, I feel like the heart of the episode is still there.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Well, on that note, next week we are talking season 5, episode 15, Power Play. As always, I love nerding out with you, and thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at thetngpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.